Thank you. Welcome everyone. I'm Councillor Susie Horton. I'm the Cabinet Member for Children, Families and Education, and welcome to this meeting, this decision meeting. A little bit of housekeeping. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and the public gallery by the stairwells. Don't use the lifts and assemble in front of Queen Victoria's statue in Goodall Square, and comply with the Guildhall Trust's fire marshal regulations. If you did sign in, please sign out when you leave the building after this meeting. Live web streaming, this will be webcast to allow the public to attend remotely if they wish to do so. So please be advised that the public seating area is not in view of the camera used to webcast this meeting, but everyone speaking will be on camera. Members of the press and public are also permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly that they do not wish to be recorded, although that's not applicable to anyone here at the moment. Please can everyone use the microphones and remember to switch them off when they have finished. Okay, I'm going to start off by doing introductions. So I'm going to go to my left.
Karen Martin, Democratic Services.
Thank you. We'll go to the back row.
Hello there. Oh, that's very loud. I'm Sam Bushby, Deputy Director of Children and Families.
Hello, Keely Mitchell, Head of Adolescents and Young Adults.
Mike Stoneman, Deputy Director, Education.
Alison Critchley, Head of Sufficiency and Resources in Education.
Alison Edgerton, Group Accountant, Children, Families and Education Finance.
And Sarah Daly, Director of Children, Families, Education.
Councillor Tom Coles, representing Fratton Ward.
Welcome to everyone, welcome to officers, and welcome to Councillor Coles. Apologies for absence. I'd received yours, by the way, for lateness, but I didn't need to actually say them. But thank you very much, appreciate that. And I don't believe there's been any other apologies received.
That's correct, Councillor.
Okay. So we'll go on to the to item 2, which is the declaration of members' interests. Tom.
I'm not sure if it's declarable, but my brother works at the Portsmouth Academy now as head of maths, so I thought I'd better declare that.
Yay, maths teacher. Great, we love maths teachers. Thank you. Always best to declare things. And my usual one, I am still Vice Chair of Governors at Craneswater Junior School. Okay, item 3, which is the first paper that we have before us today, which is the Care Experience Local Offer. And I believe Keely is going to present this. I think it goes for all of the papers. We assume that we've read them. Is that okay, Councillor Coles? Yeah. And just draw attention to the highlights, because I think we've got 9 papers today, so we've got a big agenda.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you for taking the time to read the Care Experience Local Offer. This is a really exciting offer for our young people, and we have a duty to review the offer every couple of years, every 2 years or so, and that's what we've done. And this is it's been produced with with our young people as well, so co-produced. Highlights and changes, particularly around the Care Leaver offer, are largely around. I'll go through them as we go through the report. So we've got support with council tax. So we pay for all young people's council tax living in Portsmouth. We've also will fund council tax for young adults living in an independent accommodation outside of Portsmouth as well. Getting around in Portsmouth, we know this is a green city, so we're trying to promote using buses, etc. So we have our bus passes that we're able to provide for our young people. And also we are encouraging young people to use bikes. So if they haven't got a bike that they were provided with when they were in our care, then we will provide them with a bike as a preference to driving in the city, although we will support young people to take their driving tests, for example, we will pay for that, and should they evidence that they are able to support themselves with the driving and also need it for employment or education, we will support them with their driving lessons where necessary. But that will be discretionary, and also working with the young person to understand whether they can afford to run a car, because we know it's not cheap. So that's one of our priorities. For our care experienced young adults in prison, we are, if they're going to be released after the age of 25, then we will pay a fee of £75 to the Reece Foundation, and they go towards supporting them when they come out. So we feel confident young people will know that. They also receive £40 allowance as well while they're in prison. Higher education, so that's probably one of our biggest changes as well in terms of accommodation. So we pay for accommodation when a young person is in their holidays. That's in line with other authorities as well. We also will provide a higher bursary of £1,000 a year for 4 years. What we will do is support young people to access kind of grants, etc. The PA is well versed on what they're able to access through Unite, etc. So that will help them with the funding of their higher education. Apprenticeship and traineeships, we have a dedicated employability academy, and we will continue to support young people through anything they're interested in. And birthday and celebration allowance, there's been a change with that. So previously they would receive £50 a year for birthdays and for celebrations. On their 21st birthday, they now will receive £150,000 a year, and that's their big happy birthday. And then, they won't get any more birthday celebrations other than a card, which I think is in line with what you do as parents. Clothing, we have a maximum of £150 for clothing if a young person is experiencing financial hardship. The PA would support them with that, and also if they needed some additional clothing for interviews, etc. And they are largely the main changes to the offer. The offer has been redesigned in terms of having the real voice of the child and the language used within it. I think it shows our young people, so it shows it's written for our young people as well, and we're quite excited about launching this so that young people can understand what they're entitled to as part of the local offer. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to ask.
Thanks so much, Keely. That's really good, highlighting the important bits that have changed, and also the redesign of it, which I think is a bit more user-friendly. I'm going to go to Councillor Coles to see whether he has any comments or questions.
I just wanted to say it looks great to me. It's a great piece of work, and just to thank officers for their work on this.
Thank you. I think I've said this before, but one of the most powerful things that I ever logged on to during COVID was something that the DFE did around care experienced young people, and it was stories. And the one that I always remember was the person who said that they'd gone to university and they had no way of getting there because their care offer, their support had come to a bit of a cliff edge, and they had no way of getting there, and they had to stay. They stayed somewhere else during Christmas holidays, and I just remember thinking, wow, if that, I needed my attention brought to the fact that all of the extended care that a parent gives post-18, then those sorts of stories are very powerful in reminding us that the small stuff in some ways is the most important stuff for those people to go on and have flourishing lives. So I think the attention in this report is really, really powerful, and I'm hoping that when people look at it and look at the care leave offer, that they go, oh yeah, actually, I hadn't thought about that. I do that for my kids, and these are our children. So thank you, Keely. I really appreciate all the report and your presentation of it. So I think so this is the recommendation is that approve the revised local offer for our care experienced young people, and that the offer is adopted by the council, and secondly, agree that the offer is reviewed every 2 years. I'm happy to do that. So thank you. Okay, agenda item 4 is the intensive foster family bridging care 12-month pilot. That rolls off the tongue very easily, not.
Can you say that 5 times fast?
Sam Bushby is going to present this today. Thank you, Sam.
Well, she's actually going to pass that to her colleague, Jackie, who's here to present.
Apologies, Jackie.
So it did, but it did just a minute ago. Oh, right. I'll start again. Okay. So this is a proposal for a 12-month intensive fostering family bridging care pilot and for seeking funding approval today. Just a brief background. Nationally, I think everybody recognises there's a shortage of suitable homes for the number of children we care for. And some of this is influenced by the high-cost external independent providers, which dominates in terms of the placement sufficiency strategy. The DfE has recognised this and they have released some funding to support the challenges. So, as part of Portsmouth's placement sufficiency strategy for the children we care for, we recognise there's a need for children with complex backgrounds and high support needs to have a period of care with highly skilled, resilient foster carers who are trauma-informed and can help stabilise those children. Currently, Portsmouth does not provide this model of care, and it results in us sourcing independent providers, often outside of the city, and the outcomes of which are children living away from their communities, away from their families, and away from their education. The proposal is that we will provide our own provision with the support of our partners, including health, CAMS, education, police, and adolescent service. Currently, in 2023 to 24, there were 7 children living in such arrangements for a total of 44 weeks, a total cost of £435,942, an average cost of almost £10,000 a week. The highest cost was over £17,000 and lasted for 2.5 weeks. In 2024, a child is currently in a bespoke arrangement costing £22,000 a week. Having reviewed all of those children, we believe we could have met the criteria providing our own provision through the intensive bridging placement. Recognising that some of those overlapped the period. So the proposal is that we will recruit a specialist foster care who will have the wraparound support of our colleagues, as identified, CAMS, Adolescent Service, Police, and Children We Care For Health. We will offer a 12-month pilot where we will start off a 28-day provision. Dependent on the child's needs, it may be increased. Those carers will have the intensive support of a dedicated supervising social worker. They will have out-of-hours support, and they will have specific training, trauma-informed training, to meet the individual needs of the child. The fostering family will be situated within our city so that the children placed can live amongst their families. The foster family will promote the ongoing relationship with family members, siblings, schools, and other support services. The outcomes that we want to achieve from this: children not to experience, firstly, the trauma of being moved away from their family, friends and community, children to feel safe and develop trust with those carers and support them into moving on to the appropriate provision, whether that be back to their family, whether that be to family and friends, or alternative foster family or care arrangement. The children will experience a family where they develop those relationships, and that fostering family will support those ongoing relationships for them to transfer. The proposal is that the fostering family will receive a £1,000 a week skill fee plus the childcare fostering allowances. This amount, we benchmark this with other local authorities who are currently providing or have successfully provided similar schemes. On the occasion where they may not have a child living with them, we will be able to retain and hold on to them for a child when needed by paying a 50% retainer. We have sought clarity from tax advisors whether this will be appropriate, and it's been agreed. Therefore, the total cost for this provision will be £52,000 a year, equating to £14,000 for child-related allowances, depending on the child's age, and all allowances will be paid in line with other foster carers. In addition to the improved outcomes for children, the intensive fostering family bridging care pilot could make savings to the local authority on the assumption that the pilot had been in existence back in last year. Savings of £112,000 could have been made. It is proposed going forward that the fostering service will recruit an existing foster carer, because that will give us time. We will already identify that they've got the skills, resilience and experience. And it would also mean that they would be focused on the child they care for. We would not be looking at them caring any other children during this period. If we can recruit successfully, we're hopeful that we can set this up in place for January 25. And if that did happen, the grant from the South East Regional Fostering Hub would be used to contribute to the pilot for the remainder of the financial year. This would reduce any financial impact for the pilot in 24-25. This would mean that we would need to recruit new foster carer, and this would mean that we wouldn't need to spend the time recruiting and assessing a new foster carer. I'm confident that we will be able to identify in-house for this. There are no legal implications and nothing that would legally prevent us using the funding as proposed. And the Director of Finance's comments are based on the data for that financial year. Had the intensive fostering family bridging home been in place, this would save around £100,000 less than having to source external provision, although this doesn't depend on placements overlapping and the carer providing additional capacity to existing foster carer children.
Thank you very much. Do you want to turn off your mic and then... because sometimes it doesn't work when there's more than one mic. Councillor Coles, do you have any comments or questions?
I was just going to say it looks like better outcomes and less money. So as tick for me, it looks like another great piece of work. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key thing for me is that it aligns with our values and about keeping children as close as possible. I can't imagine what it must be like to not only be moved, but be moved to somewhere you have no familiarity with. And as we've all agreed, if at the same time it saves some money, it's got to be a good thing, hasn't it, given the budget pressures that we're under. So thank you so much for that full report. It sounds a really great thing to do, and we will see. I imagine it's really rewarding as well for that particular foster. If you find the right foster carer, I imagine that's a really rewarding role to do, and to know that that is your main focus must be you're going to gain all the relevant skills. So I think that it's a very, very good proposal. So I'm absolutely happy that I'll approve the intensive foster family bridging care 12-month pilot proposal. You've got to find something a bit easier to roll off the tongue.
I was going to say, I think we will need to find another name for it.
I think you're going to have to find a little bit of
It's a working title for now.
It definitely is a working title, and it definitely describes what it is. That's for sure.
IFFBC.
Oh, yeah. Of course. Thank you. All right then, so the next agenda item is 5, which is the Portsmouth School Place Planning Strategy 24 to 29. Alison, is it you?
Thank you. Yes, so I'd like to bring you the Portsmouth School Place Planning Strategy for 2024 to 2029. So this is a document that sets the strategy and the framework for making decisions about individual school reorganisation proposals. And the document highlights the 7 key priorities, challenges, issues that we think are likely to face Portsmouth over the next 5 years. So I'll just run through those very briefly. So the first is ensuring that we have sufficient places for secondary age pupils. We're seeing a growth in numbers. We're working with a number of secondary schools at present to make sure we've got sufficient places for all of those children. Our second challenge is securing sufficient places for children with special educational needs. Members of this committee will be very familiar with that challenge, and that's about ensuring sufficient places and suitable places in mainstream school as well as in specialist provision. But over this period, we're forecasting probably an extra 500 children with education, health and care plans. As I say, not all of whom require specialist places, but they do need suitable school places. Going in the other direction, we need to manage the decline in pupil numbers at the primary level. We've seen reducing birth rates. There was something in the news just the other day about the fertility rate being lower than it's been since the 1930s, I think. So we are planning proactively with our primary schools to take out capacity. That doesn't mean closing schools. That's about working with schools, mainly if you've got a 3-form entry school, looking to reduce it down to 2 forms of entry. And we're working in a really collaborative way with schools, with MATs, to do that in a joined up way, working in the local areas. We also, and this is my slight get out, we've seen a lot of volatility in pupil numbers over the last 2 or 3 years. It is absolutely fascinating, I think, all the factors that affect the number of children in our schools. Local policy, national policy, international events can affect how many families arrive in Portsmouth, and our schools need to make provision. So nothing in the world suggests that's going to be changing. So we just need to be aware that there may be changes. That points towards not taking out all of our surplus places, because if more children come, we need to be able to provide for them and provide them places in local schools. So that's the fourth issue. We also have an ongoing focus on where there are opportunities for infant and junior schools to potentially amalgamate. We're keen to support that, so that's part of our policy. Looking a bit beyond the 5-year timeline, it is likely that there may well be a significant amount of development in the city, bringing more children. So again, another reason for not taking out too much capacity and taking capacity out on a permanent basis, that looking 5 to 10 years down the line, we may need a significant number of additional places at both primary and secondary. And then finally, and linked to that point, keeping in mind the developments at Tipner, the developments, as and when those go ahead, we will need to find a new home for the Bay campus at Harbour Tipner. So they are the kind of key priorities, and would ask that you endorse the strategy.
Thank you. Very succinct summary of those. Come to you again. Any comments, questions?
It's good to see SEND on there.
Yeah.
Sufficient places. I went to a few things at the LGA conference about SEND. I've got some stuff to give you actually. I'll have to take that offline.
Excellent.
But no, it looks good. I know at our youngest daughter's infant school, they had to reduce from 3 classes to 2, but they've still got the capacity to go back up if they need to. So I think it's doable. I think it's sensible. Looks good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coles. I think the only comment I really want to make is just the volatility bit that Alison highlighted, because I've been now doing this for long enough to remember the previous strategy. In fact, I cleared out my study the other day and found the original documents, which are really interesting, genuinely. Well, maybe it's not interesting to everyone, but it was interesting to me. But what was really interesting was the accuracy and the security that we had in really predicting almost down to and I can see Mike nodding, like we pride ourselves on how near we were to the exact numbers, because some of those variables that Alison highlighted just weren't around then. So I think the strategy is very welcome, that it actually accounts for all those additional changes that have happened over the last 10 years. And in particular, the change which possibly wasn't predicted around the numbers and complexity of special educational needs, and the age, of course, as well, that we're now providing for, quite rightly so. And we will wait and see the detail of today's budget and how that will impact Portsmouth. But no, in all seriousness, we want to keep our children with additional needs in our schools, near to us, in the highest possible provision that we can provide. And so the strategy is very welcome. And thank you for all of the work on that, because I know there is a massive amount of work goes behind creating that. Okay, so that, I think, is it, it's just basically me agreeing the Portsmouth School Place planning strategy for 24-29. I'm happy to agree. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, agenda item 6 is the proposed changes to the constitution of the Portsmouth Standing Advisory Council for Religious Education, which is SACRE, and it's Alison again.
Thank you. Yes, I will introduce this very briefly. As you say, SACRE, Standing Advisory Council for Religious Education, their constitution is formally agreed by this group here. They have been through a process as a group looking at the constitution and are proposing some minor changes to how that runs, which are brought here today for your approval.
Thank you. Councillor Coles. No. I mean, I'm absolutely happy to adopt or support the adoption of the revised constitution. I'm going to give a shout out to SACRE though, because it is a really interesting group. It really is, and it's so well attended. And I've been known to say this before, and I will say it again, that in this time where we need to embrace the differences in people, not just in religion, but just in people generally, there is a place for this. And I sometimes wish that schools would embrace it more. I know they're under a lot of challenges and everything, but the curriculum that SACRE look at, the rolling out across schools, the supporting of teachers in schools around this curriculum area is something to be applauded. And I'm really grateful that we live in such a multicultural city where we have so many people prepared to come and join that group. So that's my shout out. Mike.
Well, just to say, the vast majority of our schools do adopt the Living Difference curriculum. So although they may not know too much about SACRE or don't participate in SACRE, they do deliver the curriculum, which is great.
Very good point. Thank you. Okay, so the next agenda item is agenda item 7, which is the DSG, our favourite grant, 24-25. It's the Q1 budget monitoring and revised budget, and I think it's over to Alison here. Thank you.
Thank you. So the report details the forecast position of the Dedicated Schools Grant as at the end of June 24, which is an overspend of 31,000, and that is after the planned use of 3.272 million of the brought forward reserve from the DSG from 23-24. The report details the reasons for the overspend, and there are a couple of things just wanted to highlight. At the end of June, as normal, we are still waiting for class lists for the summer term. So the forecast for the majority of those class lists have been forwarded on budget, but they're able to incorporate the slight changes with regards to the way of the harbour class list, because they come into us on a half-termly basis. In terms of the budget revisions, we've seen an overall increase in the early years DSG and the high needs DSG income budgets. The expenditure budgets have been adjusted accordingly. so there's very little change in those. However, there has been a slight windfall in the terms of the adjustments of how they recoup our high needs places from the DSG. That means we've got £42,000, which we've reduced the call on the DSG carry forward. Section 8 sets out those budget revisions, and also they are included in the Appendix 1. The report requests that the Cabinet member to note the forecast position at the end of the first quarter and approve the revised budget for 24-25.
Thank you so much. Councillor Coles.
I think it looks all right.
I think it looks all right too, and very well explained. Thank you for highlighting those bits, and I'm absolutely happy to note the Q1 budget monitoring and revised budget, but I wouldn't be doing my job properly if I didn't say that there is the pressure on that budget is enormous. And again, to repeat myself, I was warned of this years ago, and I used to think, why have we got such a big carry forward? And we were waiting for this rainy day, and it's been pouring. So we know that a lot of local authorities, their budget's blown massively already, and we know that there's a pressure on this. So I really appreciate all of the work that goes on into everything that produces this report, but all the work day to day behind the scenes. Thank you so much. Okay. We're now going on to some information reports. So number 8 is the annual fostering service report 23-24. Back to Jackie.
Thank you. So this is the annual fostering service report for 23-24. It's a summary of the activity of the whole fostering service, comprising fostering recruitment assessment, fostering support, and connected carers, special guardianship support. The report's produced in line with the Fostering Service Regulations 2011 and the National Minimum Standards. The first part of the report details each function of the team. I won't go into detail of that today. In terms of the foster carer activity, foster care recruitment, I think people will be aware that nationally there has been and continues to be a challenge to recruit foster carers across the country, and government data shows that foster care recruitment has decreased since 2018. The national figures at March 2023, there were 43,405 fostering households in England, a decrease by 1% in 22 and 2% decrease in 2019. In terms of the number of children living with foster families, that has increased by 2% since 2022. These figures represent both local authority fostering services and independent fostering agencies. However, we have seen an increase nationally and locally in the number of connected carers from 19% in 2023, an increase from 16% in 2019. And the Portsmouth fostering activity is reflected in the report. Page 6 to 8 shows our marketing strategy alongside our Portsmouth data for fostering recruitment. You will see that from 2023 to 24, we saw a decrease in the number of foster families approved, 15 in total compared to 23 the previous year. However, there was an increase in the number of those inquiring from 9.7% to 10.7%, the national average being 10.7%. Table 1 on page 8 shows a drop in the number of inquiries, but of those 140 inquiries, 10.7% went on to be approved. Considering the previous year of 237 inquiries, only 9% of those went on to be improved. So our conversion rate from start to finish has been higher for this year. At the end of 23-24, there were 15 newly approved fostering households, mainstream, and 50 connected carers, totalling a number 65 total number of fostering households. In the same year, there was a total of 60 registrations. 23 of those carers were temporary approved, caring for children known to them whilst the department is working with the family for the child to go home. And there was 2 that were no longer suitable to care. 17 of those carers went on to gain a legal order for their child, either through special guardianship or adoption, meaning that that child left our care. 22 were due to retirement, ill health or change of circumstances. That is generally the pattern in terms of our foster care population. The vast majority of our foster carers leave us through to the natural ends, 2 transferred to other local authorities. In terms of page 10 gives a breakdown of those approvals. So we had 24 assessments during that year. 15 were approved. 3 of those were transfers from independent fostering agencies. Historically, Portsmouth does well in the transfer of independent fostering agencies wanting to come to Portsmouth. 6 were still in assessment at that point of that year, and 3 assessments were closed, and that would be because of appropriate reasons not to go forward. You can see from on table 3, page 13, there's an increase in the total number of fostering households from 2023. We went from 225 households to 232. And when you consider the number of children that they could care for at any one time, that's an offer of 481 children at any one time. That's all dependent on the children's needs and the foster carer's circumstances. 41 of those carers were connected carers, and as mentioned, we've seen an increase locally of connected carers from 14% in 2023 up to 18% in 24. Within the fostering service, we have what's known currently as access to resources, soon to change, but they are the hub of fostering and the link between all our children's teams. They receive the referrals for children needing to be cared for, and table 2 shows that we received 550 referrals for children needing care. Not all of those children will have come into care. Alternative arrangements would have been found, but that shows that we are having an increased number of referrals for children. Table 3 shows the number of children we care for at the time, and in 23-24 there were 402 children we cared for. 206 of those with our own foster carers and 47 were independent fostering agencies, and the remainder were in other care provision, and that may also include at home with families and parents. We're very proud of our foster carers, and they're very committed to us, and you will see from that table we have always retained over 200 fostering households for the past 5 years. And as I said, very, very rarely do they leave us due to dissatisfaction with the service. However, I am mindful in the current challenge of shortage of foster carers for children with complex needs, some of our carers need additional support or a lot of support to be able to provide an ongoing fostering family for those children for as long as they need, which has impacted on our placement ability in terms of short term for children, and that is something going forward we will build on. We do have a robust support network. Foster Portsmouth promotes itself on being a member of a team around our child and family. We are very fortunate. We have strong CAMS support. We have good relationships with our virtual school and our adolescent service. Our foster carers have direct access to our virtual school partners and CAMS, and that has made a difference. Feedback from our foster carers tells us CAMS is a particularly good support. For those carers caring for children, we we support them to build those relationships and care for the children as long as they need, many of whom go home, and our foster carers will support them to do that. Some children will remain up until the age of 18, and as I think we're all aware, many of the children we care for are not ready to leave home and live independently, and they will remain with our foster families. That means they go into a staying put arrangement, which is absolutely fantastic for those young people and our foster and families. The downside for us is that that means that foster carer hasn't got a vacancy for other children. Hence, as you'll see towards the end of the report, we are talking about placement sufficiency strategy and a need to focus on recruitment. Alongside fostering recruitment, alongside foster care and staying put arrangements, we also offer supported lodgings, which is a semi-independent support for young people age 18 over up to the age of 24. This is time-focused support by an approved carer, focusing on developing young people's independence. Moving on, it can be quite challenging being a foster carer, and as a fostering service and primarily a safeguarding service, we have a rigorous approach whenever there is a complaint or allegation made against a foster carer. And last year there were a total of 29 complaints about foster carers. Those complaints can range from a standard of care issue to a safeguarding issue. We have a clear process in place, and of the total of those 29, 9 of those foster families were referred back to fostering panel for a review of their approval. 2 of them were deemed no longer suitable. The overall view of the service in terms of children being cared for are within our own provision, and those children externally identifies the need to promote recruitment, and what I would say, recruitment feeds into retention of foster carers. We need to focus on retaining the foster carers that we have. In terms of foster care support, we have a comprehensive training offer. We have flexible arrangements, we have in-person training, we have webinars, we have over 200 online courses for foster carers to access as well. All foster carers have to complete statutory training through the training standards development, and then they have a pathway development plan ongoing throughout their time as approved foster carer, which is monitored and supported by their dedicated social worker. Sorry. Just need. Crucially, we invite our foster carers to be involved in our ongoing service development through a foster care liaison group. There are representatives from all types of care that belong to this group. It's chaired by our head of service, and they contribute with suggestions for development and issues that are arising for foster carers. They can raise these issues, and the service can act upon them. They will feed into our corporate parenting board and our corporate parenting strategy. For example, we know that we reviewed our foster care allowances and skills fees last year, which went through and was approved in 2024. We also know that there is a need for support and with one of the proposal in terms of our intensive fostering bridging placement came from suggestion of our foster carers. Finally, in the highlights of the report, I will refer back to Mockingbird. It is one type of care. We have 220 fostering households. They all do an incredible job, and I'm mindful of that. We did introduce Mockingbird model of care back in 2021. We are pleased to say that it's growing. And we are taking elements of good practice from that and sharing it amongst our wider foster families. The Mockingbird model is based on an extended family model of care. You have a group of up to 10 foster families, all linked, supported and led by a hub home carer, who is a very experienced, skilled fostering family. And they promote social activities, learning activities, practical, emotional support, sleepovers for when foster carer needs a break, and also it's a sleepover for children, and it can be when some of those children just want a break as well, or actually they just want to have a good time with another child who's within that constellation. We know that that's a recruitment draw. We know that from our recruitment stats, people have moved over to Portsmouth because we were one of the first on the south coast to set up Mockingbird. So people have come from other areas, including IFAS, to join us. So we will continue to grow that. In conclusion, Portsmouth has continued to sustain its 200 more fostering families. We have continued to be able to place more than 50% of our children with our own foster families. And we have a clear recruitment strategy going forward. And that we will see in the action plan for actions for the following year. In order to inform our recruitment strategy, we need to have a greater understanding of the diversity of the children we care for and the understanding of our carers' ethnicity and cultural profile. We will review our marketing approach for foster carers to ensure that we are successfully attracting foster carers, and we will be looking to increase our number of black and global majority carers. This year, in July 2024, we became part of the South East Regional Fostering Hub, which means that we have collaborated with 20 other local authorities to promote recruitment by creating a central contact for those inquiring about becoming foster carers. We are monitoring that, the success of that in terms of improving the initial inquiries for foster carers. We will continue to build on our trauma-informed learning and training for all our foster carers, and we will be rolling out DDP training for the fostering service and for foster carers over the course of 24-25. We will have a more robust system in terms of monitoring and reviewing the training for all our foster carers. And one of the others we've already spoken about is our proposal for the intensive fostering bridging placement. Recognising the growing connected carers, which we will be calling kinship care, we are strengthening our kinship care for all our kinship families. That includes our formally approved connected carers, our special guardianship families, and our private foster carers. We have already started to develop, there is the Adoption and Special Guardianship Support Fund. We have boosted the support available to those families through accessing more than 20 applications from that fund. And we will also be increasing the offer for our young people needing alternative care in post-18 and post-16 by registering with Ofsted, our supported lodgings service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you can get a drink of water. Thank you for that extensive coverage of everything that goes on. I think it's really important, actually, that we stop. Sometimes we just assume that, actually, because we talk about it a lot, but it's when you go through all of those stages, you realise the enormity of the work that goes on in order to maintain the level that we have. And as you say, people are always going to leave, and it's about constantly trying to get more people on. So there's some great detail in there. Do you have any questions or comments?
I think you covered what I was going to say.
Yeah. Anyone else want to add anything? I mean, there's just a couple of other bits that I think are worth talking about is the challenge and actually the effort that goes in. I always make it my business to try and stay as close to it as possible because I think I probably represent an average person before I did this role. And what I didn't realise was the opportunities there are. I'll be honest, it was a little bit stereotypical, thought you had to be with somebody and it was a baby. And of course, we know that it isn't. And I've spoken to so many foster carers over the years who talk about how once they realised the different models that there were, the different ages, the different situations that they needed or not needed to be in, that actually it changed their lives, to be able to change the life of a young person. And it is those stories that that we constantly try and get out there to dispel myths, but also just to plant that seed with someone that maybe this is something that they want to do, if not now, at a later point. So I think the report really, really does cover all of the depth and breadth of that. I obviously a big fan of Mockingbird. It was the first decision that I made, but I'm really pleased that you highlighted that it is one thing in a whole variety of different situations that people might be in, and it suits some people more than others, but actually how lucky are we to have that in amongst, but all of our foster carers are equally valued. And yeah, again, the launch of the hub, we'll see how that goes. I'm cautiously optimistic that actually that it will work in our benefit, because we know we're very proud of Foster Portsmouth and everything that happened. So, and as I say, I know that effort that goes into maintaining that, and also thanks to our foster carers who become part of our marketing, because they always rock up to those events, and it's just wonderful to see the pride that they have in the young people that they care for. So thank you. Okay, so that's for noting, so I duly note it. And the next item is item 9, which is the Adoption Agency Annual Report. Renee is not here, so I'm assuming that's over to you to do.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So it's given to me a bit last minute, so excuse me if there's any gaps.
Just the highlights are absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, we can assume that we've kind of read it.
Yeah,
the
yeah. I
highlights
mean,
would be great.
it's been a good, positive year for Adopt South, and also for Portsmouth Adoption. We've continue to work well together, which is give us positive outcomes and more efficient processes. We continue to recruit a high number of adopters, with the 4th highest in the country. With a specific focus on adopters for sibling groups, which we've been quite successful at. Also, one of the big things that we're able to do is the timeliness of our assessments, so stage 1 and stage 2. So that the government sort of guidance is 426 days, and our average is 324 days. So, and with only 2 in the regional adoption agencies in the country that have managed to do all of their assessments within the timescales, and we're one of those. So, you know, that's really, really positive. And the majority of our children are placed within the region as well, which is really good. So we identified 105 families for children in the last year, 22 sibling groups. We approved 84 new households. We also generated an income of £227,000 through selling some adopters, if you like, for want of a better word. And in the whole of the Regional Adoption Agency, there was only 6 children were placed externally. From a Portsmouth perspective, we had 18 children adopted, 21 with agreed plans, 18 were adopted, 3 are still waiting for families to be identified, and only 2 children placed outside of the region. Of those 18, there were 12 males, 6 females, 4 black and ethnic minority groups, 1 child with a disability, and 2 sibling groups of 2. So, you know, it's very positive, the picture. There are a couple of issues, really. There's some hard to place children, particularly those over 5, because all of the ones we placed last year were under 5. So over 5, and from black and ethnic minority groups and sibling groups, quite difficult to place. So there's some work still to be done on that. And for the first time ever, Adopt South is experiencing a sufficiency gap. So we're not quite getting as many adopters as we'd like. But again, it's a work in progress. It's something where we need to point our efforts, really. So they're the headlines, really, Councillor.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments? I'll come to you first. No?
Just want to say it looks like another lovely piece of work.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And again, I just say similarly. Oh, Sarah wants to say something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the privileged position of chairing the board for the Regional Adoption Agency, and I think it's a credit to all involved, the positive outcomes that we continue to achieve for the children across Hampshire and Isle of Wight, because it certainly is remarkable when we look at the performance of other RAs. And there was a themed inspection undertaken in the past year which drew attention to the positive outcomes of Adopt South. So it's worth noting that within that report, those highlights. And I think the other work that is coming out is the work listening to the voice of lived experience, listening to families and children who are now grown up, and really hearing about the impact of adoption, and some positive work being done around ongoing family contact, which is a real shift for everybody. But in terms of identity for children and the work that we do as a city, it's really important that we carry that forward. So I think the whole service should be really proud of the work that they're doing within this area, and we've heard about the outcomes and the difference that we make.
Thank you, Sarah. I was going to mention the inspection that you got in there, and you can sum it up much better than me. But again, I think the other thing for me is maybe stereotypes from decades ago, needing those myths and those stereotypes to be updated in the minds of people and understanding it. I actually know someone who's going through, not in Portsmouth, but elsewhere, an adoption process at the moment, and having a conversation with them around the rigour of it, but also how much they've learnt along that journey about how adoption now is completely different. And I was having that conversation with him with my dad in the room. He was adopted, in many days. He's 80 now, and literally knew nothing about his birth family at all, and the impact that had on him, but also within the family he was growing up with. And I think there's so much more insight and understanding into the impact of these decisions that we make, which are massive decisions around people's lives. So thank you. Another really, really good report, and it's so good to see that whilst we're never complacent, that we do well. So that brings us on to the 10th and final agenda item, which is the local authority maintained school balances at 31 March 24, and I'm assuming that's Alison again. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is an annual report to the Cabinet Member to report the year-end position of maintained school revenue and capital balances at the end of March 2024. Section 4 details the year-end position of the revenue balances, showing that balances overall have increased just over 1.3 million. Whilst 10 schools have seen an increase compared to 6 in 22-23, 8 schools saw a decrease in their balances. 4 of those schools had balances in excess of 10% of their budget share and of not of any concern. 2 schools have been contacted and their actions are detailed in section 5 of the report. 1 school is in deficit and the council has agreed a deficit recovery plan with that school. The remaining school is due to convert to academy and has actually now converted, and the authority has been monitoring the balance as part of the conversion process. In addition to those schools with reducing balances, the report also looks at those schools with excessive balances, and at the end of 23-24, 2 schools had uncommitted balances of more than 20% of their budget share. Schools have been contacted and the information is within the report, the details of which are in the report. The capital balances are detailed in section 6 of the report, and there has been an increase in capital balances. This mostly relates to a large capital project at one of our secondary schools. Finally, it's recommended that the Cabinet Member note the level of maintained school balances and the monitoring action being taken by the Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Perfectly summarised again. Any comments? Questions? No? Okay. I just want to say thank you for the work that's done with schools, because, the level of support, and I know the amount of time that is spent really trying to help those schools in managing what are really, really tough times, and also encouraging those schools who like to say for a rainy day that it is a rainy day. So those conversations, I know it's really, really valued. So thank you so much to you and the team for doing that. So and that's another noting report, I believe. So I note that. Well, that brings us to the end of a very long agenda, which we managed to do in an hour with some really good detail communicated and questions and comments. So thank you to the officers at here. And can also, I forgot to thank the other officers before they left, so please pass on my thanks to them, because I know how long it takes to write these reports. So thank you everyone for